Okay, so UK Acoustics Network Plus. So we're about to have a call for some pilot projects and other projects which we will come to during this. This is our agenda. So we're going to have a very brief something from me about the UKAN mission, what the background is, what the acoustic priorities are, something about the pilots, and something from the previous award winners and what the process is. And then we'll have some time, hopefully about 20 minutes for some questions. Okay, so if we go to UKAN, I'm going to rattle through this relatively quickly because I want the maximum amount of time for questions. I think probably because I'm sure that people will have them. So do feel free to put questions in the chat. Be very useful to have them. Okay, so what is the UK Acoustics Network? So this is the second incarnation. It now has 1,400 members. So it's quite a large network. It has special interest groups. It aims to be broad and inclusive, to cover as much of acoustics as possible and to provide a central place for acoustics related research, both nationally and internationally for people in the UK. We do have quite a large number of international members. So we're not excluding people if they're away, if they're somewhere else, but that our funding, because CPSRC funding naturally has to be directed towards activity in the UK or UK researchers that are going somewhere else. So if I think historically it was a rather fragmented community, and I rather hope that the UKAN is providing some coherence here. UKAN Plus, which is what happened after, so the first grant we had from the EPSRC built a network. UKAN Plus is, we got more money or more funding, and part of which was around pilot projects. And if we look at how, so as academics, for instance, a large amount of our funding comes from UKRI. And lots of UKRI has switched to either challenge-led research or research based around priorities and themes. Sometimes these priorities and themes can look a little distant from acoustics. And I was just going to pull up some of the priorities and themes from our webpage, but I realized I've just gone and closed our webpage. For instance, in things like energy or clean energy, if there's a call on that, it sounds very distant from acoustics. But if we think about the sound, the influence of wind turbines, the sound in maritime, the effect that it has on marine animals, there are lots of ways in which we can twist acoustics related research into apparently disconnected themes. So one thing we did with UKAN Plus was to have a set of acoustic priorities and theme champions around these sorts of themes to help people in acoustics get directed into that style of funding. These calls are around us getting the community together, and indeed your good selves, and getting pilot projects in place, which will hopefully seed larger proposals going forward. That's not wishing to sound too money-minded, but that's the crux of the matter. How do we get more acoustics proposals? How do we help you write really good proposals? And one way of doing that is by having pilot projects, relatively small amounts of money, get people going. Okay, I think I've covered all of the things I was going to cover. Kirill.
Thank you, Richard. Yes, so we have altogether approximately £800,000 from Engineering and Science Research Council to support pilot studies and knowledge transfer, KT, small scale research projects in the next 2.5 years. So basically these calls are in support of our UKAN mission to stimulate research in key areas which are basically listed within the priorities we're going to touch in a minute. So there are two types of research projects which we're going to support. One is the Richard mentioned pilot studies, and the pilot studies are high risk, high potentially gain projects, which has to do with the fundamental or applied research done by academics. And the knowledge transfer research, which are basically a dissemination of knowledge, technologies, science, and IP with non-academic partners. So basically, both of these projects are they're already small scale. They're no longer than 6 months, and they are designed to develop a larger grant bids, so which are should be done really in collaboration. So we have a few key criteria to judge the quality of these calls. And these criteria are listed in the documents, which you can find on the funding page of our website, which I'm happy to share with you. And let me just share my screen, if it's okay. Here we go. Okay, can you see that? So if you go to the main page of the UKAN, there is a funding page and funding information, and this funding information has all sort of key dates and also links to the documents which explain the process, which we're going to touch in a minute. So in terms of the nature of these calls, they governed by the acoustics research priorities, which Richard mentioned already. And the original aim of UKAN to create a strategic connection between the grant challenges, which are also listed on our website, which is under the acoustic priority webpage. So there are 4 of them, which is AI, well-being, manufacturing, transport, and sustainability. And these link to 20 acoustic priorities, which we developed in collaboration with our network members and special interest groups. So ideally, just what we want to do with these pilot studies and knowledge transfer is just to connect acoustic research priorities with the more broader themes. And these 4 themes are just not made up by ourselves. Actually, these kind of 4 themes which are developed by IPSRC, Engineering and Physical Science Research Council, and broader within the research and innovation of the UK. Okay, anything else I forgotten? Maybe Oliver, Ling, do you want to say something which I maybe forgotten to say?
I realized something that I'd forgotten to say, which was around the participants and the applicants. Obviously, we want the broadest and most inclusive group of applicants we possibly can. Particularly, we'd be keen to see applications where the PI was female, because they were quite seriously underrepresented in the last round compared to their representation in the wider UKAN Plus membership. So I just want to make that statement, because we got that feedback from our advisory board.
Talking about actually eligibility as well, maybe Richard, I just briefly touch on this. Ideally, we would like to see early career researchers applying for these grants, because we want to support their career developments and help them to build up for the larger grant applications. So when I say early career, it could be those people who are already in academic position, like lecturers, for example, research fellows who are allowed to bid for research grants under UKRI or IPSRC rules. But also for those who may not be eligible to bid themselves for the grants, like research assistants or PhD students, or representatives from the non-academia. These people still may be able to develop grant proposals as long as they team up with the academic in academia who are eligible to bid for these grants. So, for example, in the case of PhD students or postdocs, they can be thinking of bidding for something which is led by their academic line manager, or those people who are not in academia, they may team up with a member of academic team in a university. Anything else? Lynn, Oliver, I can see the question. I probably can answer to that online as well.
Yeah, maybe I can share some experience of how I link my my project to the acoustic research priority. Actually, I'm very lucky to be one of the early career acoustic research champion of the UKAN Plus. So I'm a very good witness of how this priority research area come out from zero. And if you look at check the website, if you look at each priority area, you can see that it consists of a lot of item and research direction. And these items are suggested by the acoustic research leader from the 16 the special interest group. And in the beginning, these items are quite isolated and unorganized. And then later on, we tried to link them with the 4 UK industrial grand challenges: the AI, well-being, manufacturing and transportation, and sustainability. And we call them the research theme. And what we do is that we ask our academic team members to vote on the relationship between this research item and the 4 research themes. Then after some statistical analysis, we identify the most important items that are highly related with the 4 research themes. And finally, we put them into groups, and each group is a research priority area. And we got about 20 priority areas. So this is the counter format you can see from the website. And the whole procedure is quite lengthy and iterative, and it took several months. So I think this is a very important contribution of the UKAN Plus team. And the description of the priority area is very clearly written on the website. And if you have a good understanding of your project, you can link your project to the priority area very conveniently. I can use my project as an example. So my project mainly aims to investigate the feasibility of using drones for bioacoustic monitoring of the wildlife vocalization. For example, the bird and the bat. The basic idea is to mount a microphone on the drone and then based on the sound collected from the microphone to detect the number of species in the environment. And the advantage is that the drone can fly around and can go anywhere. The disadvantage is that the echo noise from the drone may degrade the sound recording quality significantly. And the SNR can be minus 20 dB, which makes the sound recording completely unusable. So my project mainly aims to develop some noise robust algorithm for vocal species detection and classification from the noise recording. So if you can understand the project, you can easily find out which priority area the project may fit. For example, for my project, I can identify at least 3 priority areas. So at first, the project involved signal processing and machine learning to monitor the environment acoustically. So it will naturally align well with the area of AI making sense of sounds. And then the project also do some bioacoustic monitoring, which is crucial for biodiversity monitoring and conservation. So the project will naturally fit with another priority areas. So one area is the impact of sound on the wildlife, which involves the development of a bioacoustic approach to tackle the biodiversity crisis. And another area is acoustics for understanding of climate change, which involves the application of acoustics for monitoring of biodiversity. So in short summary, if you check the description of the research priority area from the website, you can link your project with the keyword conveniently. So this is my experience. Oliver, over to you.
Thank you, Lynn.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think my experience was very similar. So I applied for a KTP instead of a pilot project, and I was trying to develop some guidelines for long-term acoustic monitoring of biodiversity in the UK. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, the obvious priority area there is the sustainability. So I leant on that very heavily and looked through the areas and linked very carefully to the areas that it would match up with the UKAN priorities in that area, and also slightly more tenuously the AI, where we can use AI for acoustic monitoring. So just try to bring in the UKAN priorities as much as possible in that application, but also talks about it in sort of the potential that a set of guidelines would open up for future collaborations again in those same priority areas. And just bring those priority areas into as many different parts of the application as possible.
Thank you, Oliver. Okay, so we talk about a bit about acoustic priorities and background to the calls. So we are going to issue the call on the 8th of September, but as we do so, we're also going to invite people to attend workshops organized by the company called The Collective. And Zoe, are you going to talk about these specific workshops and why people have to bother about attending them?
Yeah, sure. As we've mentioned, this is the second call for UKAN Plus. In the first call, we ran two workshops with a very experienced team from a company called The Collective. The feedback that we received back from call one was that people really benefited and really gained a lot from attending that session, and so that we're going to duplicate that and run that again in call two. The primary purpose of those workshops are, as I've stated here on the slide, are that what we're wanting to do is to bring together individuals from across the UKAN community to allow people to discuss what we've just been talking about earlier, which is around the acoustic priorities. And as we've mentioned, what we're looking for from the calls is to have these high risk, high reward proposals. So it may be that you've got an initial idea, but what you're looking for is project partners. It could be that that's where the workshop will become in handy, or it may be that you've got a good team and maybe want to have a chat with somebody to have further explore that idea before you put the proposal together, and that's really what that workshop's about. As I say, we did get a lot of positive feedback from that, and so what we're going to do this time, we're going to run those it's exactly the same workshop, but it'll be run twice, firstly on the 8th of September and then again on the 13th. The application for those workshops opens next on Monday, and that will be available. The applications are all available on the UKAN website. I think what I just want to highlight here is that due to wanting to make this as fair and as transparent a process as possible, the assessment panels that review the applications don't have access to individuals' names. So we did experience previously where individuals had just put very brief information on that application form, and because we were oversubscribed, people were then unable to attend because they'd not put sufficient information. It's not an elaborate application process, but I do encourage you to give it some thought before you put that application in. As I say, the numbers are limited to try to ensure that those workshops are as effective and inclusive as possible. Is there anything you wanted to add at all, Richard or Kirill?
Maybe just to say that it's a good forum, these workshops. So a good forum to have conversation leading to new exciting research ideas. Also, good strong proposals are normally done in collaboration, so it's good forum to find collaborative partners. Also basically understand how these ideas link to the key research priorities which we agreed and published on our website. So also to understand better the application process. So we do encourage you to attend. So building connection is important. Richard?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I can very much appreciate that as an early career researcher, or indeed as any researcher, it can be a bit daunting writing grant proposals if you have a very good idea, but you just don't know who else is in that sort of area who could be helpful. And so having these workshops, and also the workshops themselves, will be geared towards a bit more challenge-led. What does challenge-led research mean? Because often I'm doing some nice problem, I'm very happy, it's all going well, I want to do more of it. But that's not going to go, that may not go well with funders who may want to know, what is the challenge? What is the big thing you're addressing? It's perfectly possible that the thing I just described, the problem very nicely, fits into some bigger challenge or some bigger group of people. And so the purpose of the workshops is to try to encourage that sort of thinking. What would my proposal, if I had to do my proposal and it had to fit into these sorts of priorities, energy, zero carbon, or whatever it is, and the government will be pushing out these sorts of proposals. The other thing to think of is something called Innovate UK funding, and we'll probably touch upon that also.
Thank you, Richard. Okay, so we talk about collective workshop. So shall we start about the process for application? There's probably quite a few people already asked questions about application forms and things like that. We're going to touch on this in a minute. Maybe some of this be covered as Zoe will talk about the application process.
Thank you. So, as Kirill's mentioned earlier, we have a full and detailed application process, all of which is fully available on the website. But this is just a slide really just to highlight that process to individuals. As again, everything will be available on the website. The call will open at the same time as that initial workshop. So the call, this for call 2 will open on the 8th of September, and they will run for a period of 6 weeks, which takes us through to the 19th of October. Applications are to be made via the UKAN website. Application forms can be downloaded, but the only way that they will be accepted is if you use the system online. The application form, again, we've tried to make this as painless a process as possible, but there's obviously certain processes and questions that we needed addressing. What we've done is we've split that application form down into 3 parts. The first part is compulsory, along with part 2. And the reason they're separated out is so, again, that we can follow this blind assessment process. There is slight duplication on the part 2, but only of a couple of questions. Part 3, we do strongly encourage individuals to submit, as Richard again's addressed. We are aware from people completing that we haven't reached as many female applicants as possible, and we're really encouraging people to do that. But the way in which we can monitor and look at how UKAN's reaching out to the whole community is through that form. Once the deadline finishes, as I say, on the 19th of October, I will then do an initial sift, and what that's done is basically that people have met that initial criteria, and there were a few that didn't make it through that first stage. So, for example, just very simple basic mistakes such as asking for more money than what the maximum was, and that did result in some individuals not necessarily going through to get to the reviewers. Obviously that's critical. People need to adhere to those, so I would strongly encourage people to read that application process document that we've got on there. Those, as we've mentioned earlier, there were 36 applications, and the vast majority of those went through to, and they were blind assessed to 3 different individuals, and we split that between senior academics, industry and early careers to get a really wide review of that process. The second process after that, on this occasion, on the call 1, was that we then took 12 of the best of the ones that we were really impressed with, and we were actually initially going to have a lower number for there, but there was such a high quality that we then took 12 through to a further panel, which was then made up of a number of individuals, 7 all of which were then reassessed all the applications and all of the reviewers' comments, and from there we were then able to award the 7 projects that we've mentioned. Those 7 projects will be on the website. That's something that we're working with at the moment. Unfortunately, it's not quite completed, but those will all be on there, and that will be fully documented. All of which has been the awards have been made and announced through our newsletter. I think one of the things that we just wanted to mention here was that from call 1, we have experienced a number of issues with regards to the contract. We had posted on the contract, and we asked individuals to reach out to their teams to make sure everything would be okay, but the contracts have raised a number of questions between the 2 different universities. So this time what we're going to adopt is a fixed contract, so there will be no negotiation. So I would strongly recommend that if you are looking to apply, that you review that contract and reach out to your contracts team and see if they're going to be able to support you in that application.
Zoe, and the actual terms and conditions are on the website under the funding page.
Yes, yeah. In line with all EPSRC grants, we will be expecting individuals to submit costings on 100%, but we will only support 80% FEC. And then this time for call 2, we would be expecting all projects that have been awarded to commence in May 2023. I think I've covered everything there.
No later than May 23, isn't it?
Yes, no later. That's the absolute
Apologies.
max. Yeah,
6
yeah.
months is the usual time APSRC required to start the projects after the award letter. And those people who couldn't appoint somebody to start this, they still must start or give the money back. So we can't wait for too long because it's a short-term scale project. And the project wouldn't run for longer than 6 months.
So just finally, just to note again, this is all information that's available on in the document, but just to highlight those are the figures. The budget for call 2 has increased from call 1, but we do have we would strongly encourage people not to view those as maximum amounts. We would we are as a network, we are very much wanting to fund as many projects as we can. So do consider what it is that you're applying for. Again, I think that's everything, unless anybody's got anything to add on there.
Maybe I just to remind again about the key criteria, what we're looking for. Again, so we're going to fund 2 types of projects, like Zoe mentioned. One is a pilot study, which is a sort of more high risk, high gain academic projects, which may or may not have industrial partner. And we will fund knowledge transfer projects, which must have industry partner, showing a good level of commitment to this project, financial or in kind. So then the key criteria for assessing these projects will slightly different. So the pilot studies mainly be assessed on the capability of the investigators to develop their ideas into competitive full-scale proposals, so that at the end of the project we'll like to see evidence actually that the idea is tried and tested, and then this project lay the foundation for a bigger UKAN or some other type of projects, like for example European Union. So also we'd like to look at my ability to initiate new to the UKAN strategically important areas of research. Also be looking at quality, novelty, risk and adventure of the proposed research idea, and potential to make a significant impact in a particular acoustic priority area. This is for pilot studies. In the case of knowledge transfer, we're looking at a strong financial commitment from the non-academic partner, around 50% of full economic costing. Substantial research element and potential for step change in this area by developing this collaboration, and also strategic relevance to non-academic partner and clear potential for non-academic impact. Okay, so both project types should be led by academic, but they may involve non-academic partners. I didn't say industry because some non-academic partners, not industrial partners, could be charities and so on. So, but they can be involved, but the project must be led by an academic partner. Okay, Richard, Oliver, Lynn, anything else?
No, except that, as Kirill said, you know, strong engagement from an actual industrial partner for KT is important. Otherwise, it doesn't look, it looks like wishful thinking. It's very important that we don't have proposals that are wishful thinking, but which actually, if they claim to involve an industry partner, then they really should. And the other thing is, I would emphasize again that the amounts that we're putting as maximum, they're not a target. They're not the target is 60K or whatever it is. That's not, please don't view it like that. You should ask for what you need to do the work up to a limit of the maximum values that we've put there.
Exactly. Oh, one more thing as well. So we normally will fund those projects, so or ideas which usually wouldn't be funded by other funding bodies. So we may be asking question why it's not a full-scale research proposal to PSRC, or why it's not a knowledge transfer partnership proposal, or something like that. So it has to be type of proposal which are unlikely to get funding from anywhere else.
One of my experience is to find non-academic collaborator is that the UKAN Plus has a very good network. If you from the website there is a directory, you will find a lot of non-academic member of UKAN Plus, and usually they are very active and very keen on collaboration. If you contact them, usually you can get quite good positive feedback.
Okay, are we coming to the end of the formal presentation and towards the question answers now?
I'm not sure if Lynn or Oliver's got anything to add on their sections.
Yeah, did you want me to describe a little bit about my application and how that went?
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
please.
Please.
Okay, sure. So yeah, as I said before, mine was a KTP. So actually, I wasn't able to attend the collaborative meetings because I had fieldwork at the time. But my industry partner, Carlos Abrahams, who works for Baker Consulting, which is a leading consultancy in sort of ecological monitoring, and have really taken a lead on acoustics in that field. He was very keen on sort of developing some sort of guidelines, and we discussed it vaguely before, but he went to the collaborative meeting and sort of a vague idea turned into a far more crystallized idea. And I think he found that really useful going to the collaborative workshops. And he came out of that, and we decided that together we could go ahead with like a full scale KTP application. The main financial cost for us was just my time and his time. So their financial contribution was Carlos's time, which showed a substantial contribution. We applied for my time, 80% for a couple of months full time to write up some guidelines. So we were well underneath the maximum budget. And then, as I said, in the process, the process of writing up the guidelines, we focused on a couple of things. We focused on the priority areas, but we also focused on the impact that we thought we could make by writing the guidelines, both to improve Baker Consulting and the way they work, but also to improve the industry and the area in general of sort of ecological consulting, because really, although there's a couple of sets of guidelines that have existed quite previously, they're not very prescriptive. They don't have sort of it clearly laid out how guidelines could be done, and they don't really identify the key areas that they could be used. So we identified all those places that we could have impact, why it would have impact, and what impact we thought that actually writing a clear set of guidelines would make, and how it would help the consultancy industry in general to use acoustics more, and how that would benefit sustainability, biodiversity, and the environment. And it was successful, which was great. So I think that's enough for me, unless anyone's got any more questions or anything like that.
I'm also very happy to share my experience to prepare the proposal. Actually, to submit the proposal, I think this is the proposal is a little different from the regular proposal. For UKAN Plus proposal, you need to answer a questionnaire from an online form, and the questionnaire is very well designed. And by answering the questions from the questionnaire, you will naturally have a well-organized proposal. And usually the questionnaire, I'm not sure if you have already seen the questionnaire. And usually the questionnaire consists of 3 parts. The first part is about the general information of the investigator and the budget. And the second part is the brief introduction of your project, your plan, your deliverable, and the EDI consideration, and also how your project fits with the research priority area. And the third part is the main part of the proposal, and it has 5 questions. The first question is the scientific merit. You describe your project in detail and also the novelty. And the second question is the value of money. So why your project is important and what is the impact of your project. The third question is the industrial relevance. You can talk about your industrial partner if you have, and also your engagement and outreach plan, and how you accelerate the impact, the path to impact. And the fourth question is about the potential collaboration with other SIGs. Here you can elaborate how your project fits with the research priority area and how it links with other SIGs. And to answer this question precisely, you need to understand what is the research focus of each SIG. And I think you can find the relevant information at the UKAN Plus website. And usually it would be great if your project can be linked with multiple SIGs. For example, my project can be linked with bioacoustics and also aerial acoustics. So, and also it provides a good link between acoustic signal processing and robots. So this is the fourth question. And the fifth question is your future funding plan. So please keep in mind that the project is a pilot research project. So usually UKAN would expect the project could lead to some bigger project application. And this is some kind of a high risk, high reward. And you need to have some plan on that. And this is the basic idea about how I prepare the proposal. And I also have some tips on preparing the proposal. At first, that is that the collaborative workshop is very useful. So last year I attended the workshop, and the workshop consists of two parts. The first part is the presentation from each SIG, and the second part is the sample discussion. From the presentation, I can have a better understanding what challenges each SIG are facing. And also then the sample discussion is very inspiring. I got a lot of confidence and a lot of good idea by discussing with other academics. And the second tip is that, which I already mentioned earlier, the industrial relevance. UKAN has a very good network. From the website of UKAN, you can find some potential collaborator and contact them. Usually they are very active and keen for collaboration. For example, I contacted several potential collaborators and I received 2 positive response. And now they are my project collaborator. And also UKAN release the application guideline where you can find the application procedure and also the assessment criteria. I suggest you look at this assessment criteria very carefully. And usually these criteria are already linked closely to the question on the questionnaire form. So I will not put more words on that. So this is my experience. I hope it's useful for you.
Thank you, Lynn and Oliver. Here we are. Well, maybe just before we start questions, I just add as well 2 types of grants we can also fund, which don't require filling the formal form. One is networking events, which is to organize a workshop or something like that, face-to-face preferably. And that can be organized by sending requests to Bridge to myself. You can send it directly. And we tend to fund workshops up to £10,000 through this call. And this call is open all year round. We don't need to wait for a specific date to send these requests. So the other type of grants we can support is to do with the travel. So to develop new collaboration, I just sent in a link, the Google form link, which you can fill in if you want to travel somewhere to meet new people in the UK, overseas, or in industry, for example. So we tend to fund these requests all year round without waiting for a call. Okay.
I was just going to say, I also applied for one of those workshop funds. We've just had a big symposium with 160 people, which actually fed into the guidelines as well. It was really helpful to have that meeting, and it's worked out really, really well. So it's, again, that was a simple process, and it was very helpful.
Okay, so I noticed people did ask a few questions in the question and answer session. I don't know if everybody could see it. So one question was from Bolan about application forms. So in my understanding, applications form not quite there yet because they're going to be issued on the 8th of September. But then the question is, can we have an example of it? And maybe you can provide an example of the last year application form.
Yes, we can do that. I think one of the concerns that we had was that the applications must be made online, and so we wanted to ensure that there was no possible process for people emailing any downloadable forms. So we didn't do that before.
Maybe you can actually list some questions which are will likely to appear in application form, so people can't fill in the form, but they see what kind of questions they need to answer.
Yeah, sure. I can perhaps make available the questions around the actual proposal, sort of the scientific areas and things like that, rather than the application process. Yeah, sure.
And this year we will limit the number of words which go in every box under the form, so people can actually be focused on what they want to say rather than just going forever. Okay. So then it was a question about the workshop. Faye Clark asked if the workshop application per project or per individual researcher to attend. My answer was the both. It could be actually a team of people come to attend the workshop, or can be individual people who want to find partners who understand how the research links to a wider picture. Is it right, Richard, Zoe?
Yeah, it depends what the workshop is. I mean, if it's something which is, I think that there's another one. Is the workshop presential or online? I'm sorry, I don't know what that's about. But for these workshops, for the proposals, a group of people could propose to run an event, or an individual could propose to go to an event, but in which case they would be better off going to one of the smaller proposals.
I would guess they're asking about the collective, Richard, probably.
Ah, sorry.
If I understood correctly.
I beg your pardon. And I beg your pardon, Jacob. I was trying to dive into the questions and I got a little bit lost. The workshop is online.
Yeah, and also they asking we will about the funding equipment cost. We will not fund equipment cost, but we can fund some moderate amount of consumables. So, but they need to be justified. Is it right, Zoe?
Yeah, all of that's in there. But you're correct. We wouldn't fund any equipment. I think we've clearly stipulated that in the document. Yeah.
Another question was from Jacob Dunn. Do you require institutional sign-off? So university grants teams hitting the button for submission. I don't think we require that, but we require the legal form, isn't it, signed off? So to agree terms and conditions.
So at the application process, we haven't stipulated that people have to have provided any evidence that they've contacted either the finance teams or their contract teams. But I think what we're experiencing and what we're saying is that you need to approach them, because the financial details that are submitted will be reviewed, and equally the contract needs to, because we're not accepting any negotiation, people need to have reached out to their contract teams and make sure that they would be happy with that and they wouldn't want any changes for them to agree it. And with regards to the finances, they need to make sure they're correct. So for example, making sure that if you're quoting for time of an individual, a colleague, then that needs to be correct. It can't be a working out your own figures. You need to make sure that they're correct.
I think from an ECR perspective, when I didn't really understand the process, I couldn't have done it, especially the budgeting at 80% stuff. I needed to speak to my finance team and contract team to get them to get the help and support for doing that bit.
Actually, part of why we do that is to give you that practice of going to the contracts team, talking to them, because it's very daunting when you're writing your first fellowship proposal, writing a grant proposal to UKRI, and if you don't know what 80% FEC means, then it's a bit of a challenge. And so also about the equipment, we're not being awkward. It's just that we didn't put equipment into the budget of the network. You can't put equipment into the budget of the network.
Yeah, because they apply different rules how co-fund this thing. So anyway, so then there's some more questions about can the funding cover cost for researcher to be recruited from Wenbo Duan? Hi Wenbo, good to hear from you. Yes, that's true. We can pay for it. But one thing, what would we suggest is just to make sure that you have somebody in mind you want to appoint. If you don't have somebody in mind whom you want to appoint and you have to advertise, it might take a considerable amount of time. And this person from overseas, it may take up to a year to make this appointment. We did mention that we'd like the projects to start within 6-month time frame since the offer letter arrived. So if you can't start the postdoc or PhD student or whoever else you appoint within this time frame, so they either have to give money back or do without this person. So we can't wait indefinitely for that. So therefore, it's a good idea to have somebody in mind. Another question is about, are we still eligible to apply for fund if we apply for travel fund from Mahal Giria? I guess you're asking, can you apply for travel fund and pilot studies separately? The question say yes. But yeah, I guess so. Is it right, Zoe? Nothing stops us from
Yeah,
giving this
no,
money?
absolutely. There's no limits on, people are being participants to multiple funds. Yeah, if it's just the application they need to adhere to. Yeah.
Jacob then asking, what is the value of the travel grant, please? Zoe, do you want to answer that again?
I think we've agreed a maximum of £500 for that, Kirill, but I think the key there is that when they put their application form in, there's a clear demonstration for what the benefit is for them, but also obviously perhaps foot towards UKAN. So it's the context that's key.
Well, I also suggest if you want more than that, so you justify it, the form, the link I provided you to has a box where you can explain why you need this money. And usually we give the money if the travel is to support the mission of UKAN, the mission which Richard talked about. So if it supports the mission, so in principle, we should be able to give it the funding. That's a requirement. Okay. Regarding Martin Richter, regarding workshops, would organizing a summer school for PGR students be covered? Regarding workshops, it depends. I mean, Martin, are you asking about the collaborative workshop or separate workshops? Somebody want to organize, including yourself?
If it's the grant for workshops, that's got a maximum of 1 week duration on it, hasn't it? I think.
Yeah. Well, in this case, normally we would pay for people travel, so it has to be justified. You have to get an estimate how many people would attend and what resources they need. But yes, the travel can be covered. So also we would encourage people to invite speakers, particularly prominent speakers, including from overseas. We have funding to support that. That'll be good. Does it answer your question, Martin?
Actually, on summer schools, I would also say that the Early Careers Network, the Early Careers SIG, in the past had organised a couple of summer schools in the days when we could all meet in person. And I hope, and I perhaps imagine, that they will think of doing so again. But I think it would be good to approach, if you're thinking of actually running a summer school, it would be good to approach the Early Career Researchers Special Interest Group and discuss your ideas with them.
That's a good point, Richard. By the way, our Early Career Group have a £100,000 fund, which is separate from the money we are discussing now. So they have agreed to pay up to £500 per travel fund for early career researchers, and you can apply by writing to any of the 4 champions who lead this group, and you can find their email addresses on their website. If not, you can drop a mail to Zoe or myself and ask. So they're also happy to support some initiatives, including some small grant bits, but you need to discuss it directly with them. They manage this grant. Okay. Any other points we need to discuss? Ceremony. Ceremony says, I previously attended some of the ECR SIG summer schools workshop. They were fabulous, fully recommend. Well, thank you, Sarah. We are going to encourage our our early career group to run another workshop, probably either in winter next year or in summer next year. We haven't done it, unfortunately, in the past because of COVID issues, and this year we have a Internoise, which is a big conference when Acoustics run in Glasgow, and we didn't want to have a clash. So, by the way, Early Career Group runs a big event at this conference, so we do encourage people to attend. And if you want funding to attend that conference, do write to us. We can support you to do so. So, but hopefully next year the summer school by early career researchers will be organized. Do you remember what sort of focus will be for this one, Richard, for the summer school?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't want to drop Lynn in it by saying, does he know? But
we can also ask people to actually come up with the ideas for the focus for this workshop and write either to us or to early career people to express their views. They will be taken into account.
I think it's still on the planning. It's not determined yet.
Yeah,
that's fair enough. Sorry to have put you on the spot.
Oh, by the way, Lynn, you're representing early career, is it right? Well, here you go. So you
Yes.
know whom to write the questions.
Yes, yes. I think there are some, because I think this year there are some the early career groups support some other training programs. For example, the grant writing and the public engagement, and there are already a lot of programs. And so the plan is to organize either some school or within school in some near future.
Okay.
Okay, well, I think there was one more question. Sorry if I've missed it. I think somebody was asking around resubmission, which we've, if somebody received positive feedback for call 1, we said that we would accept resubmissions. On the new application form, there will be the ability to resubmit, but you will need to clearly explain
Yes.
what the premise is for the resubmission, what it is that
Yes.
you've substantially changed to make that valid.
Yeah, definitely. Can't stop people to resubmit, but again, you have to just make sure that it's a substantially improved application. Also about, I think it was a question about feedback, or I dream of this. We did provide feedback, but we didn't provide individual feedback. So we had a session specially organized, Richard and myself. We basically gave general feedback on key good and not so good points, which we spotted in the applications submitted for the first call. So I don't know if it was recorded, Zoe. So is it recorded anywhere? And there is a link to this.
I don't recall. I can look into that. As you say, we held a session for individuals who received a sort of a generic feedback. Individuals who were successful to go through to the first round, who made it through that first initial, they did receive one-to-one feedback, didn't they? We did speak to individuals on that basis, but it depended at which level through they'd made it after that initial sift.
Yeah. Okay, but if you still have a specific question about specific grant application, and because you were planning to resubmit right to us, we'll see what we can do. Because we do want to encourage you to submit strong bids, but do make sure that these bids are competitive. So because last time we had 36 applications, so and some of these applications were very competitive, like actually from Lynn and Oliver.
Okay, I think we're done with questions. I can't see any more popping out.
Just Jacob sent to Zoe
right.
about request for example proposal or the form. So we probably put some questions on the website and show you what sort of questions you're likely to see on the form. By the way, before we finish as well, so one more question will be on the form to do with sustainability and net zero. It's something Research Council takes very seriously, and government in general. So do think how your research will fit in sustainable growth and net zero.
I would say that I do understand, for instance, that, as a mathematician, sometimes I use pen and paper. I would claim that that's sustainable because of the minimal energy use I'm using. So you don't feel you have to say, I can't apply because my work isn't on sustainability. I think and I've made a slightly flippant, kind of semi-humorous example there, but I think it's just asking you to think about sustainability. Is the travel necessary? Are we going to do lots of travel? I mean, I just picked on travel again as a slightly flippant example.
Thank you, Richard. Yeah, okay. Well, if you got any specific questions, like for example from Maha, so do send us.
Yeah, please feel free to get in touch. And if we've not covered anything, or you think of anything after this session, then please feel free to email us.
Because we do want you to succeed, and unfortunately we don't have actually enough money to fund every single application. We'd love to, but there is limited. So, but we do want you to succeed, and one way to do so is just to put a really strong grant application, which is well written, so has the novelty aspects and leads to potential step change, or at least to a larger grant application through pilot studies or knowledge transfer. Okay.